in Orange County. He's got a Diet Coke addiction. Scott, how are you, sir?
What's up, Chris?
How you doing today, man? Doing good?
Good.
Good. Awesome, dude. Well, I'm excited to kind of jump into this with you. For those of you guys that don't know me, I'm going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Chris Gianos. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Humanize. And in our never-ending quest to try and bring as much value to the real estate market as humanly possible, we've now started doing these Friday sessions where we're getting some of the brightest minds in the real estate space. Doesn't even have to be purely in the residential space, like in brokerage space. I've got plans to bring people on from different companies, the mortgage space, tech space. The whole goal is to get a really well-rounded idea of what's happening in the market now and bring smart people in so that we can essentially hack our own growth. We learn from smart people. It makes our job a lot easier. So today with me, I have Scott Kato from Long Beach, California, and I've got some brag points, and then I'm going to let Scott introduce himself. This guy has gone from individual agents producing over 120 sides a year to launching his own team, and now he's in the indie brokerage space. So we're going to talk to Scott about his journey today, see what he's done, how he's having fun doing it, and hopefully get some golden nuggets that are super tactical that everyone can kind of apply. Did I hit the nail on the head, Scott?
Let's do it.
Awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey. How did you get into the real estate space?
It's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read
Really?
that book back. Yeah, honestly, my father had just sent it out to me, and I read it when I was living in Florida at the time, and that kind of just got the juices flowing. And then I thought I would flip homes. Yeah. And so I
how old were you when all this started?
That's when I was, about 25. I was 25.
Got it.
25 years old.
Cool. Yep. So right after college, did you go to college or kind of just jump right into the space, or?
I kind of, I got stuck in the corporate world, kind of worked my way up the ladder.
Got it.
Dabbling in JC, junior college. I went to Fullerton JC, then I went to Cypress, and then that was it.
It's always interesting, man, to hear everyone's journey. I think more and more, I don't know what the stat is, but I'm almost positive that a lot of successful real estate agents have not gone to college. So it's always interesting to hear everyone's journey. So cool, man. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then just dove in head first. How did it all start?
Well, let's see. I started out as a open house king. I was doing open houses 7 days a week.
Wow.
Started, trying to succeed through my relationships, my sphere of influence.
Sure.
I would say those were the two big pillars of my business. So started my journey with Century 21.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So for the individual agents that are on the call, hearing open houses, I know for a lot of folks, that's like a super daunting task, right? It's like, oh, I got to do these things. You were doing them 7 days a week, right? So in this market where that's something that a lot of people probably should be doing with how little buyers there are in the market, how did you do that? Right? Because I think a lot of the barriers that I hear in the space are like, well, I called and the listing agent doesn't want to give me an open house. I'm assuming those weren't all your listings, right?
None of them were, actually. None of them were.
So how did you do that? Let's talk a little bit about those calls, right? So in the effort to bring like super tactical advice, right? So if you were a new agent right now and you were like, yo, I want to do 7 days of open houses every single week, right? What do those phone calls sound like? Because I think there's a lot of friction in the space right now, right? With listing agents, they don't want to let
they're all out of brokerage right now. So I would go and chum it up, get in a relationship, create value with the top listing agent in your office. If they've got a team, then I'm open to that idea as well. But those that have the listing, are going to give me the opportunities to find my own book of business.
Got it. So were you just approaching agents in your own brokerage at that time?
Absolutely.
Or were you like picking up the phone and cold calling, or how was that going?
Yeah, I will say 2003 was a lot different than what we're seeing today. There was plenty of inventory, right? So I don't want to sit here and say that, I'm going through what we're going through today. It is different, but it means though, what other options do you have, right? Yeah. So you got to just hunker down and go get it, go stick the sticks in the ground somewhere.
Yeah, man, I think it's interesting. When I was running my team, there was a lot of friction with listing agents, especially as the market kind of constricts, right? Everyone wants to do what? They all want to double end it. So why would they let an agent hold an open house, right? So as a new agent, let's talk about even this market now, right? If you were a new agent, or what kind of coaching are you giving agents on your team, right, to get those open houses? So when they pick up their phone and call a listing agent that they might not know, what do those conversations sound like so that they can provide value and they can make it not just a brand new agent calling a listing agent and keeping their fingers, eyes, and toes crossed that they get an opportunity. You know what I mean?
Y- Yeah, yeah. I think it's everything that as a listing agent of what we want. We're just going to leave the home in better condition than when we found it.
Sure.
Certainly, it goes without saying, we're going to keep all the lights off, close all the windows, make sure everything is secured, clean up after ourselves. More importantly, we'll give you feedback. Just giving them feedback on what the consumers are saying, good or bad or indifferent.
Yeah.
If an agent comes through with their client, we're going to take a
Sure.
picture of the business card and send it back to the listing agent so they can get direct
Uh,
feedback from them. And, again, just really building the relationship and keeping the lines of communication, because I want to do it again.
yeah.
I want next weekend if they'll allow me to. And
Yeah.
I'm going to let them know that.
I think a lot of people shy away now from the like more traditional methods of generating business, right? Like the hot topics for everyone right now are like leads, Zillow Flex, Upcity, all these different things. Open houses have existed for like 100 years, probably, if not longer, right? So it's time true and tested. And it's interesting that you say what you just described of what that phone call sounds like. I feel like that's a sales call in itself, right? If you're calling a listing agent to try and schedule a showing, it's not going to be as simple as pick up the phone, ask for the opportunity, and they just go for it. Sometimes it might be, right? But remembering that that is a conversation that's between you and the outcome you want. So if you have the opportunity to, I would like prepare for that call, right? I'm sure you did at some point, Scott, like
100.
actually sit down, write out what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and then probably even role play it with your team leader or someone else on your team. Because I think what a lot of people don't think about in these types of things is like that's a nuance. That's a hurdle that you have to get over to do business, right?
Right. Right.
So
No,
super valuable.
100%.
That's awesome, man. So open house king, doing them 7 days a week. How long did you do that for? Out of curiosity, like were you
You
doing that
know,
pretty consistently, or?
I would say the first 2 years in business, I was 80 hours a week. It
Yeah,
was nonstop. But I will say, today, Chris, we haven't met in person, but we're both pretty
yeah,
casual. I'm wearing a
yeah.
t-shirt and jeans today.
Same.
It's no different. But I will say though, my first 2 years in business, I was shirt and tie every day, showing up, because you just never knew when the opportunity. They don't do call desks anymore, I don't think.
Yeah,
But I used to
yeah,
work
yeah,
the
yeah.
call desk, and you had to be ready to go open the door for someone who was calling off of the LA Times or the Orange County Register.
Yeah, it just speaks volumes to like the idea of like dress for the job you want, not the job you have, right? Like if you look at a lot of top producing real estate agents, sure, you can make the argument that now they might be a little more casual, right? But for the most part, I've talked to, I mean, to big top producing agents, guys like Tim Smith and stuff, and they still have a look, right? So it's not saying that you can't earn that opportunity to be a little bit more casual, but just remembering that when you're in the beginning of your career, if you want to feel great, there are days still to this day where I'm like in a little bit of a funk and I find myself going, I got to get out of this funk. How do I do that? Right? I throw on a suit, not tie, but I throw on a full suit. You just feel different, right? It's just an
Absolutely.
opportunity to do that. So as a new agent, that's a great tip, right? Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So, all right.
Right.
So you're a new agent, you're doing 7 days of open houses every single week, you're pulling 80-hour work weeks and stuff. When does that start to like pay off? When is that like you start seeing the fruition of your labor?
You know, I just started to invest in my business. I started to run ads in the local Grunion Gazette paper.
Yeah.
And I started just focusing on one building in downtown Long Beach. And
Okay. So just like a
oddly,
high rise or
I
something?
just a high rise, right?
Yep.
It had 75 doors, and I got lucky. The phone rang, got my first listing appointment, secured it. And then from there, everything that I made from that one sale was poured right back into my business. Then I started farming heavily that building every week, all the time, just running a local, small little 8th ad in the Grandin Gazette paper.
That is awesome, man, because I think a lot of folks with their first couple of transactions, the industry now is starting to become like hyper transactional, right? We forget that one deal should probably turn into 3 or 4 deals, right? And we talk a lot about, oh, well, a farm's got to be 1,000, 1,500 houses. I like the singular focus, right? So you're saying you got one listing done, closed in that market, in that specific building, and then you just doubled down. You put money back into it and just kept going.
That's exactly right. And then when I got my second listing, and then I got the proceeds from that, then I took the next building. And then
okay,
when I got my first listing there, then I went to the third building.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, because this is awesome. And I think what a lot of agents struggle with, we all, like, there's a knowing doing gap that exists, right? We all know what we should be doing, but there's that thing in our brain that, like, it's a hurdle, right? We know, if we all know what we should do, I know I shouldn't eat at Taco Bell, but like once or twice a month, I'm like, yo, I'm going to stress eat some Taco Bell and it's going to be great, right? So thinking about that knowing doing gap, right? And breaking this advice down so it's super tactical for everyone on this call. When you were talking about farming these buildings, what did the mailers look like? What did the frequency of the mailers look like? Were you door knocking? Like, what does the step-by-step look like for that?
So in my open houses, that's what I would do. I would do everything that we would typically do in the office at the open house, but my sticks were in the ground, so I was getting market share, mind share. So I would sit in there and I would do Microsoft Publisher, Chris, and I'd drop in my picture, and I would sit there for hours tinkering over and over because I thought I wanted to be clean and modern, and I overthought things, right?
Yeah.
So I would get it would take me like 5 days to get a postcard out. Then I would go to Kinko's, print out 100. I'd buy my paper, 100-pound cardstock at Staples, take it to Kinko, give it to them. They'd print them out. They'd cut them in half. Then I'd go back to the open house, address them, stamp them, mail them out. That's what it looked like. And I would do that once a month on that first building.
That, to give, like, to dissect that for everyone on this call real quick, I'm friends with a lot of real estate agents, right? I'm all over, like, I'd say 3/4 of the people on my Instagram are real estate agents, right? So I get to see a lot of like what people do on a day-to-day, which is good. Keep cataloging your day-to-day. But to Scott's point, I see a lot of folks in like open houses that might not have the most traffic on the planet, right? And they're sitting in there, like, I guarantee everyone on this call can resonate this, like doom scrolling Instagram, looking at memes, talking smack, FaceTiming your friends. What Scott just said was powerful, right? Like, whatever you're planning on doing in the office, why would you be, this is like a complete mind-blowing thing for me because I've always been an in-office guy. I think good work gets done in the office. You can turn an open house into an office, it sounds like. So you were there just trying to double dip your time, it sounds like, right?
Absolutely. Everything was pretty intentional. Everything was pretty intentional.
So got the listing done. We now hitting it once a month with these postcards. Were you only hitting them once a month, or did it turn into twice a month at some point, or how are you going about that?
Yeah, it was once a month. Again though, but then just duplicating what I was already doing in this building and doing the exact same thing in the next building.
Sure.
And then once I got my first listing there, I just, in the last 6 months or in that 6-month period, by the following year, I was blitzing all of Ocean Boulevard, and I ramped up to about 3,000 cards a month.
Wow. And that's awesome. That, I think a lot of people, again, have difficulty kind of narrowing in on where and why, right? I don't think there is I might bite my words with this one, but I was going to say, I don't think there's a bad place to farm, right? I think it's just a matter of picking one and sticking to it long term, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would do a little bit of research just to make sure that, because once you start, Chris, as you know, there's no going back because you got to go all in. I mean, it's an 18-month ROI in my world is how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think everyone, especially for a lot of folks that are on this call, we struggle with the like, we do a little bit of effort, we want reward now,
Yeah.
right? And farming and actual postcards and stuff is a 12, 18, 24-month play before you even get a little glimmer of hope, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
awesome, man. So did that, built that up. Were there any other marketing kind of channels you were playing with as an individual agent besides open houses and mailers? Were you doing anything online? Let's talk about the other pillars you had in your business.
Sorry, it broke out. I think I got most of the question there. It
Sure.
was sphere of influence. You know, I think let me go fail forward with people I don't know that I'm not in relationship with, out, and then I'll go. But what happened was my friends were starting to buy, or
Yeah.
people I knew were selling homes. But because I decided that I, you know, again, like most, for me, it was fear of failure, fear of judgment.
Yeah.
Therefore, I kind of associated my self-worth with what I knew about the industry,
Sure.
which was this much. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to cast a large net. But then when I see my peers buying homes, I'm thinking, well, that's my fault. So
Yeah.
then I started to Brian Buffini. I'm a big advocate of Brian Buffini.
Sure.
It's not the sexiest marketing pieces, but what I love about it, Chris, it's a system. And it's
Yeah,
out of
dude.
sight, out of mind. It's done every single month.
I think people get so caught up in the aesthetic of marketing sometimes that they forget that the key to marketing, sure, I have a strong opinion around design and stuff is important, but at the end of the day, consistency is far more important. It doesn't matter really as long as your name, phone number, and email are getting in front of people consistently on like a continual basis. So that's awesome, dude. So had all these different lead kind of channels and stuff going, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
farming and mailers and open houses and all this stuff. How long did you do that for as an individual agent? And what light bulb went off in your head at some point where you're like, hey, I need to start a team? Because I think what happens is a lot of agents, they think that's like the next iterative process, right? And don't really think about all of the complexities that come along with like actually running a team and stuff. So what did your journey look like there?
2004, this time I was with Coldwell Banker, and I
Sure.
read the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book.
Yeah.
I don't even know who referred it to me, but I could not put it down because I thought, who is this Gary Keller guy? That's me. I want to scale and bring in talent and leverage. And
Sure.
so I hired my first assistant in 2005. No joke. I probably went through 6 assistants in my first year because I had zero leadership skills. I thought, I'm paying them, they will figure this out, just like I had to figure it out, which is small thinking. And that's why they would quit on me after 45 days, because there was no clarity, no direction. I
Yep.
wasn't spending time with them. But in 2005, I eventually had someone that stuck with me, and the rest is
So
history.
that's important to do. Like, let's dissect that a little bit.
Yeah.
So hiring an assistant, I have experienced exactly what you just described, right? Where you hire someone. For those of you guys that were in eHomes in the beginning days, we hired Sonia, right? And I was like, oh, cool, this is great. I'm just going to hire her and she's going to be able to read my mind and I'm not going to have to work as hard anymore. And she's going to take all of the important stuff off my plate. And it's going to be great. So I've learned that lesson. I'm curious what your lesson is. So if you were an agent that was on this call right now that's like, hey, I'm going to hire an assistant. I'm going to take Scott Cato's advice and go and do this. What tactical steps can you take to make sure that you're ready for it and you're doing it the right way? You're onboarding that person the right way.
Yeah, Chris, I'd just start with a list. Just start writing down everything that you're doing, but you really just don't like to do it.
Sure.
Another way to think about it is anything that is not making you money, it goes on the list. That's an admin role. That's support. So
Yeah.
then it goes to a compelling job description of who you want to attract. I think you need to identify that in your mind, who you want, the end result. And then, again, it's career visioning or recruit select, like behavioral assessments. I do dip into that a little bit, just to try to get off on the right foot with the right person.
What is KW's model of that called? KW has a personality
career
assessment.
visioning. Oh, the
career visioning.
disc.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Disc.
it's the
Yeah.
disc.
That's it. Yeah,
So
it's important for those of you guys that are thinking about doing the assistant thing. Just remember that I think the single biggest lesson I learned there, to kind of Scott's point, is people can't read your mind, right? If you don't know what you want them to do, they're not going to know either, right? It's a symbiotic relationship, right? So what I learned was people perform as well as you train them to, right? And they need to have a list of, hey, if I don't know what to do, here's a giant list of stuff I can do, right? That helped me tremendously. So awesome. So hired that assistant. You've now got your first hire, Scott. Let's talk a little bit about the Kato group. So when you actually start building your team, right? Are you hiring a buyer's agent first? Are you hiring 10? Like, let's talk about that journey a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. So it went the assistant first,
Sure.
which then freed up 80% of my time, which now I could service all of the leads that I was creating and keeping 100% of it, right? I think most agents want to bring in an agent right now and start to help them, hold them accountable, but they don't even have enough volume to service them. They're really not eating yet. So it's a big distraction. They start going sideways and focusing on this other person, and then their volume goes down even further. So it's definitely a buyer's agent after the admin.
Yeah, and that's important because I think a lot of folks, there's like this natural progression as an agent where you're like, oh, I'm going to work more on the listing side. I'll hire a buyer's agent to handle all our buyer stuff. You better be swamped on the listing end before you even decide to even tinker with that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm telling you, for all you prospective team leaders on the call, growing a team comes with its own unique set of problems, right? You become a people leader regardless if you want to be or not. So thinking about that, like, create leverage for yourself first. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did, Scott. You hire an assistant, you hire someone to come in and kind of help take the workload a little bit. That's first move. Increase your own productivity by an order of magnitude and then start looking and bringing other folks in, right?
100%. And again, what we see a lot is they'll bring on a buyer's agent. Maybe it's a layup, the deal that they would have had anyways. They kind of partner up together, share 50% of the revenue. But then who gets all of the admin, the 80% back? You do, because they don't know it yet, right? So you get taxed on more non-money producing activities for 50% of the revenue. So it's really backwards.
Yeah, it gets a little sticky. So I agree 100%. So that's awesome. So you created leverage yourself first with an admin. Then we started bringing in buyer's agents. Let's talk about your journey with the Kato group. So how big did it get? How are you guys running your business? How are you creating opportunity for your agents? All that cool stuff.
You know, we during the I was about to say pandemic, but 2008, when the market shifted drastically, we transitioned into trustee sales. So a partner, Neil Thompson, we partnered together. He ran our investment division. So we raised $1 million, went down to the courthouse steps, kind of figured it out. And then we went.
So Scott, real quick, for the folks on the call that might not necessarily know what the trustee sales are, right? Can you describe that process a little bit?
Courthouse steps, buying distressed assets directly from the beneficiary, from the banks after the bank.
Got it. So banks are foreclosing and they're selling the houses on the courthouse steps.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So we would get the list, figure out what homes are going to go to auction that day. We would bird dog it. We had someone on the road, identifying the asset, making sure it was still standing. And then we had cashier's checks.
Yeah, I remember. So I had some family members that were doing that stuff for a long time. And they had the cashier's checks were like Monopoly money. You had them in denominations of 50, 25, 100, right?
Yes. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So
that's pretty awesome, man. Okay, cool. So transition to that.
Yep. We raised we went all the way up to about 8 million, and then we were about to double that and go to 16 million. And then the market was shifting and a lot of European and Asia money was coming in, and they were buying these assets for our exit, for what we were after renovations at ARV, and they were acquiring it. So they did take a bath, but their pockets were deep. I'm sure. They weathered it. Yeah. And so it got too tight for us.
Scott, I lost you for a second. Can you hear me? Okay,
You
cool.
can't see. Yeah.
I can see it. It's just a little blur.
Okay.
We're all good. So awesome, man. So got into the trustee stuff, started doing that. Obviously, the market was a lot different back then, right? There's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of that happening now. So as you guys started building the Kato group, right, outside of the
Yeah.
trustee sales and stuff, what did that look like? Where were you guys getting leads from, primary value prop to agents, and how exactly did you make the decision to start scaling?
Yeah, we were creating our own inventory. So we were buying all these acquisitions, and then we transferred into short sales, REOs. We were aligned with all the top agents in Southern California that were short sales specialists, REOs as
Sure.
well. And that was feeding our team. So we had open houses, we had sign calls, we were big Zillow players since I want to say it was 2007 or 8. So when Zillow
Wow.
kind of launched, you would know better than I, but when they launched is when we jumped into that. So we were always buying leads also. So that's how we were really supporting that team.
Got it. And Scott, when you were at Zillow in the beginning, if you were way back then, that's awesome. Do you remember, like, I think back to those days frequently, right? Because you used to be able to buy a zip code for 150, $200, right? And you would get all these leads and it was absolutely awesome. And now connections are about $1,000 a piece in Orange County, right? So the times have changed a lot. Let's talk in and dig in a little bit on the like lead conversion process with those leads back then. So as you start arbitraging leads and you're buying Zillow leads and trying to turn them into transactions, what do you think is the key to doing that at a high level?
Today, follow up. I think it's follow up. You got to have leverage in technology, some sort of system, throttle drip campaigns. As soon as the lead comes in, I think there needs to be a sale because multiple agents are receiving the same information. So how do you stand out, right? We know it's typically 14 touches to an appointment for us. And so 8 of those are going to come from automation through our CRM system.
Yeah.
We have ISAs, inside sales agents too, who are scrubbing them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think lead conversion is a really interesting topic right now because as the prices of leads go higher and higher and higher, it's turning into a system where only kind of the best survive. You know what I mean? So I'm always curious what people's perspectives are and kind of what the secret sauce looks like. So you've now grown the Kato group. You've got this group of agents that are converting internet leads. I know your journey, Scott, you guys started at KW, right? And then kind of transitioned out of KW at one point or another, right?
Yeah, Coldwell Banker before that, then KW in 2011 is when I joined.
Got it.
Launch. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that because I see here in our notes that you built these 3 KW offices and basically like exploded them. So for all of our prospective, we've now talked about individual agents. We've talked about prospective team leaders. Let's talk about that broker of record CEO role, right? Where you're running the whole office. So growth, right? Built the last KW office to 130 agents in 18 months with a sales volume of $500 million. How did that look? How did you make that happen? What did that journey look like?
It started in Long Beach first as a core member. There was 5 of us that launched that office and then ventured off into Cerritos and helped assist launch that office. Then we went to La Mirada. And at that time, Chris, when we launched La Mirada, I had somebody running my team. So I was out of production at that moment. And the owner said, Scott, your name keeps coming up in La Mirada. We're having a tough time finding a leader because it's right next to Cerritos. And so they're going, why don't you give it a stab? And I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do. But my business was capping at 50 million, and my coach said, I think you're the challenge, Scott. I think you're the problem. I think you need to get uncomfortable again and go raise your leadership lid, hold your team accountable, and or raise the standards. And you might need to top grade down. You might need a new set of brain power to help get you to that 75 million mark. So I thought, okay, well, maybe being a team leader and understanding how to run a market center will translate into my own business. Get uncomfortable again. So that's what I did. I went over and I started to recruit agents, and I think it was easier for me, Chris, than my peers, other team leaders, is because I had built it. So I wasn't talking hypothetically or theory. I'm talking from firsthand experience, and I can just say, this is what I did, this is what you're going to do, and help them get from A to B.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. For those of you guys that are thinking about like growing teams and starting to get into that space and growing brokerages, I think a lot of people think that like growing teams and brokerages is like 90% recruiting and 10% training and enablement, right? And I kind of think, my opinion is that it's almost the antithesis of that, right? Growing a good brokerage and stuff is 90% training and 10% actually finding people to come in, because the industry itself is like failed almost, right? The amount of work that it takes to get a real estate license in the great state of California, you pass a 150 question and multiple choice vocabulary test, they give you a real estate license. You can go sell a $10 million house. Does that kind of align with what you're thinking too, Scott?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no barrier to entry. So I think everyone just thinks what we do is anyone can do it. And they certainly can. But it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. Right. But there's also like this gnarly learning curve to figure out how to actually do it, right? It's like a fail forward type thing. So you built these 3 Keller Williams offices, right? What did recruiting look like for you back then? So you've got now offices to fill and bodies to find and stuff. What did recruiting look like for you at that point in time?
I was pretty much doing exactly how I would prospect for buyers and sellers. So it was automated, systematized. I would, I'd reach out to people, pick up the phone, introduce myself. Social media certainly helped a lot. As you know, we could see who's following us. We could track and follow other people, and we could like them. Once the relationship was off the ground, then I would send items of value to them also. Yeah. And then I would just check in and I would invite them to anything that I thought was of value. Ideally, it was in the market center at the office, a training, a guest speaker.
Yeah, that's important. There's a word you keep saying, Scott, that I think is super important. You've said it now like 3 or 4 times at different levels of this conversation, and it's value, right? Whether we're providing value to our customers or to our agents or to our clients, whatever it may be, that I think is the fastest way to excel in any career, period. End of story, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. The more you figure out how to articulate value to the marketplace, the more rewards you're going to get, the more shekels you're going to get, right? So that's awesome, man. So it sounds like there was a lot of like manual outreach. You were just cold calling real estate agents and kind of throwing stuff up against the wall with these folks, right? Trying to provide value to the market.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself. And from there, Chris, I knew, just like a buyer, they're not going to meet with me on my first call. They're not going to come down and have a buyer consultation or, want to hear what our market center is all about. So, but I knew over time, the more deposits I made into them, I could do that withdrawal at some point in time, and or at least be in position for a call if something went sideways in their current environment. Just
that makes a lot of sense.
Top of mind.
Yeah, you're the guy they call when the shit hits the fan. That's a good place to be in. So let's talk a little bit about obviously growing these brokerages and doing the numbers that you did and stuff. I'm sure a large component of that was training, right? What did training look like to you guys? What did it sound like? What should agents really be focusing on? If they're like, hey, I want to go from doing 3 to 5 deals a year to doing 30 a year, what would you be focusing on from a training perspective if you were an agent right now?
I document the procedures of what I'm doing. I would take all of the noise and document it, and if it's not making me money and can be leveraged to a W-2 person, I'm bringing in someone to do that for me so I can go off and focus on money-producing activities. It's all about scaling, is how I see it. Like, you've got to hurry up and just get all of that stuff, all the busy work off of your plate so you can go do more of what got you to that 3 to 5 transactions.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, another common theme that I'm kind of hearing with what you're saying is like, I think a lot of folks do this thing where we mistake being like busy for being productive, right? Where it's like, okay, oh, well, hey, I used to ask myself this a lot when I was still in the space and managing a team myself. I used to ask myself this question a lot. I used to ask agents on my team a question a lot, which is like, hey, if you had a normal 9 to 5 job, you get to the office at 9 o'clock, you work for 4 hours, you take a break, you work for 3 more hours, and then you're out, right? You've got 7 hours of focus time, an hour break. I think everyone falls in this trap as agents where it's like, oh, we get to do whatever we want, right? Which is great. That's awesome. If you've got the self-control to do that and still remain productive, that's awesome. But I think a lot of agents find themselves in that busy, not productive thing. And the question then becomes to yourself, and I've asked myself this question a million times, what am I doing for 8 hours a day? Right? What does my day-to-day look like? Because a lot of what Scott's been saying to everyone on this call is like, yo, you got to put your head to the pavement and grind. There's no way around that, right? So just remembering that, like, if you're ever in a spot where your business isn't where you want it to be at, ask yourself that difficult question. Go look yourself in the mirror. What am I doing 8 hours a day, 5 days a week to improve my situation? You want to really blow the lid off your thing, pull out your phone and look at your screen time one day and look at what your screen time looks like on Instagram and TikTok and all these different places. That'll make you feel real great about yourself real quick. Because how do I know? I've done it myself. So awesome, man. So that's great. It sounds like there's a lot of creating systems and procedures and stuff so that you're able to stay consistent and do the same thing over and over and over again and build predictability in your business. Is that about sum it up?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. That's awesome. That's super tactical. And if I was an agent right now and trying to figure out how to do that, I would go get a white piece of notebook paper immediately following this call and write down what you've done all day, right? Line item by line item, what you've done. And if the answer is nothing, you have a different problem to try and figure out, right? So awesome, dude. Okay.
Here's the cool.
Yeah, go for it.
Can I touch on that real quick? The two
Yeah.
things. I think if you're out there, figure out what your hourly wage is. So if you sold 6 homes and you worked, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months, figure out what your hourly wage is. And then just ask yourself, what I'm doing right now, is this worth whatever that number is, $180 this hour? If the answer is no, that goes on that list for your leverage. And then going back to Chris's point, here's an exercise where, when we hold agents accountable, we say, oh, how'd you do this week? Oh, I had to do this. I had to do that. I don't have enough time. So I would challenge them to do this exercise. I want you to log down every 15 minutes what you did for 1 week, just 1 week, every 15 minutes, and then go back and everything that's a money producing activity, highlight it green. Everything that was busy work or had social media, whatever you're doing, highlight it red. And I promise you, that will tell a story. Most of the time, it's all red. Like we're just focused on the wrong things.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. And this is going down a path that I love of like just productivity and stuff. We're all wired right now to put in a little effort and get a lot of reward, right? Think about, and this is getting philosophical for a second, but I think this is good. Talking about like delayed gratification. Real estate is a business of delayed gratification. You get in, the work you put in today, you will not see dividends for probably 60, 90 to 120 days, right? Building predictability in your business is doing the same thing over and over and over again, and hurry up and wait, right? One of my mentors has told me recently with like where we're at in our business, dude, hurry up and wait. Just beat your head into the ground right now and results will come in 6 to 9 months. So the purpose of this rant that I'm going on is like, get comfortable with putting in the work now and getting the reward later, right? That is the true key to all of this stuff. Scott, does that kind of resonate with your thought process?
100%. And I think what will help them see the big picture is you got to establish the goal. What is it we're trying to achieve, whether it's in 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years or 5 years? Because then I think the decision process of what you're going to focus on, it's either in alignment or it's not. If it's not, you got to get it off your tape. You got to get it off your plate. You got to focus again on what matters.
This is something that everyone on this call could go and do immediately, right? If you're in a sales position, congratulations. If you're a real estate agent, you are in a sales position. Mortgage broker, you're in a sales position. If you don't have somewhere your goal for the next quarter, I'm not even asking for the year, but for the next quarter, measuring something, there's so many different things that we can measure. The things that get measured get improved, right? If you don't know what that number looks like, every single person on this call that's in the space, I don't care what it is, right? Boil it down to something. It could, sure, if we want to look macro, number of sides open for the year, number of families helped. You want to get it really crazy and really granular? How many phone calls and conversations do you need to have over the course of the next quarter to get to your transaction goal? It's really easy to get focused on the macro end result, right? I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to sell 100 million this year. That's great. What is the smallest controllable thing that you can do to get towards that goal, right? That's what I would be trying to think about. To Scott's point, like, if you don't have a compass pointing somewhere, you're going to go nowhere, right?
Yep. And Chris, they don't even know what their average sales price is. And you can just pick it in wherever you live. Pick your average medium house and do the breakdown at 2.5, put in some assumptions, some placeholders, but model it out. So if you want to make 250,000 in a 650,000 average sales price at 2.5%, that's 18,000 hypothetically. Divide that into 250 is what you want to make a year. You got to sell 8-9 homes, right? And then figuring out where they're coming from.
I like how that just came out of your head. Like, real estate agents, good ones, know 2.5% of every number on the planet.
It's the only math I know.
It's just burned into our brains. Well, that's awesome, dude. That's super tactical. And like, the more people I talk to that are on this level that you're on, it's just the common denominator is an extreme work ethic that's like tactical and it's granular and it goes in the same direction. It's not a, I'm going to try and figure this thing out and just work really hard. It's no, have a direction. So that's super helpful, man. I definitely want to get into this latest thing you've got going on now, right? Which is you opened your new brokerage in 2022, right?
Yeah.
So what led to that decision? Because there's a lot of folks, we're seeing a lot of like, I'd call it consolidation in the industry right now, right? There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of people kind of all over the place. What led to you going independent, right? And what was the moment where you were like, hey, I got to do this. This is my next evolution. What did that look like?
Pandemic hit. 3 agents on my team wanted to slow down and go in different directions, understandably. My team leader for my team was with me since 2007. Running my team on her own since 2016. Fast forward to 2020. She says, Scott, everyone just left the team. I know what you're going to do. You're going to recruit 4 or 5 more agents. I'm going to be stuck training them. It's going to take me a year to ramp them up. And then I don't want to do that. I want to slow down and I'm going to go solo. So she left my team after being together for 13 years.
Wow.
So to me, that was this big fire that I had to put out. So natural instincts, I gave my notice as a team leader and jumped back in to take back my team. In doing so, though, Chris, I had 130 agents at that market center, and a lot of them were from Long Beach. So they're going, hey, buddy, you were going to help me with my systems and models, and now you're in production. And I thought, wow, I'll still coach with you. It's just not every week. I'll do what I can. And they started to put the chirp in my ear of, you should open up your own brokerage and let's go back to Long Beach. So it wasn't even on my radar. I was like, that's the lot. Like, I don't want to do that. And
it's funny, man, is like thinking like really philosophical for a second. I think the universe, right? Universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will tell you what to do when you're supposed to do it. The key to that is sometimes we don't want to listen to that little voice, right? Sometimes it's uncomfortable to like, I don't know why it is in my life, but I'll continue. I repeat the same lessons over and over and over again until I learn the lesson, right? So it's like, sometimes it doesn't exactly sound super fun to take the tip that the universe is giving you. But if people in your circumstance were literally telling you, hey, dude, you should open a brokerage, you almost got to do it, right? The world is saying, go do this, man. So do it, right?
That's what happened. And so I unbeknownst to them, I did file during the pandemic for my with the DRE. It took forever. It took a year to get that approval.
I know the game.
It's such a racket.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's like the DMV. It's worse than the DMV.
And what happened, I did have 35 LOIs, Chris.
Yeah.
before, but because it took so long, EXP took off.
Yeah.
So everyone was going to Compass and EXP. So when I launched with 9 people.
Yeah.
And I thought there was no going back though. Because
Sure.
I said I was going to do it. And so I went for it, and we were working remote for the first 6 months like this on Zoom until we found our office that I'm in today.
That's awesome, dude. So that I feel like was a total learning moment for you, right? You've got 130 people who are like, hey, I'm coming over with you and ready to rock and roll. And because it took so long, now you're down to 10, right? That's what happened.
Yep. And then it just took time to build the band back, put the band back together.
That right there, for everyone that's listening, is like, that is like a test of faith. That is the universe going, hey, dude, everything looked great. Now it doesn't. Are you going to push forward, or are you going to pump the brakes and take the beating, right? That's awesome, dude. So got down to 9, and now you've grown this massive thing, right? Got some initial friction. So tell us about your brokerage now. How big are you guys? Where are you guys located? All that cool stuff.
So we're in Long Beach. We're literally on the tarmac of the airport, Long Beach Airport. I see Southwest taking off right in front.
That's awesome.
We've got an 8,500 square foot office. We're up to 100 agents.
Nice.
We just started to attract new agents. The first year, we were only focused on top, like 5 million or more, 4.5 million or more in agents. Just out of sheer bandwidth, didn't have a coach, productivity coach, trainer.
Yeah.
Technically, we still don't. I am it.
Yeah.
So
wearing a lot of hats.
It's crazy. I mean, it's been a fun ride, but I'll tell you, it's a lot of work. It's because I'm still in production too. But I see the light.
Yeah.
I see the light. I see the light.
So talk to me a little bit, Scott, about the lessons you've learned so far. So you're like 12, 18 months into this thing now, right?
Yeah.
So what lessons have you learned along the way? If you could go back 18 months ago and tell Scott, hey, this is going to happen and here's what you should do, what do those lessons look like for everyone on the call that's thinking about going indie?
You know, even though you might have good relationships and great intentions, they're not all going to come.
Yeah.
They're not, we opened up an escrow company, and Chris, again, this isn't on my vision board. I wasn't, I got to have a brokerage and I got to have it. It's out of sheer necessity. Like, if we're going to make this thing work, because we're not making money,
I understand.
This.
Yeah.
I need an escrow company. So the stars aligned. I attracted my officer that I've been in business with for 20 years since day one. She joined me. But here's the aha was, just because I had an escrow company, it was naive for me to think all of my agents were going to use
I'm going to get all this stuff. Yeah, dude. That is a problem a lot of people don't think about, is like if you build it, they're not automatically going to go, right?
Yeah.
It's like contrary to popular belief, right? So that's a great point. For all the team leaders who are on this call, ancillary business, we're starting to see more and more. To Scott's point, this is how a lot of us are making like businesses profitable, right? You've got all these ancillary things where you can squeeze it a little bit. For all the agents on the call, if you want to make a lot of money, do not become a brokerage owner or a team leader, right? I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It's like, it's a grind, dude. It doesn't pay dividends for a very long time, right? So Scott, this escrow company that you've opened, again, I'm assuming you're going to say, hey, well, we provide a ridiculous amount of value and our agents want to use us. What does that messaging sound like, and how exactly are you doing that? Because I think a lot of our team leaders struggle with that. How to align our folks with our ancillary partners, right?
Yeah. That's a great question. So that's why we've been stuck at 83 to 100 agents. Like, I haven't grown it in the last 45 days because all my energy was going towards escrow.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, how can I have my agents just give us a shot? How do I get them to try one escrow? Because I know it's comfortable for them, and I'm sure they're getting a level of service from their current relationship. So it's just been pouring more value into these agents, and in return asking, I would really appreciate it if you would throw us a bone and try, because I'm trying to make $1 just like you.
Yeah.
And truthfully, the brokerage model, I don't charge for office space. I don't charge for color copies, but yet I have agents printing up $350 a month in color copies.
Flyers. Yeah, dude.
In
I get it.
flyers. And so I'm saying, I don't want to change anything. These are all, I want to keep it the way it is, but I need your support. I just want you to try it and see how it works out for you and your client.
To Scott's point, that what he just said is super important, right? For all the team leaders or brokers on this call that are like, hey, I want to figure out how to get my agents to support my partners that might help us. What he just said, coming from a place of authenticity, right? Shoot or shoot. If you can't just assume, right? I wouldn't come in super Machiavellian and lay down the hammer and, hey, we're using this escrow. That, I know what that game looks like. I've watched that game unfold in front of my eyes. That game doesn't work, right? That game ends in, at the end of the day, people going, well, why do we have to use that? That's not fair, blah, blah, blah. Have a really high-level conversation. Get in front of your group at your next sales meeting and say, hey, guys, so there's a lot of you guys know we've got this escrow company now, right? We're trying to continue to pour into the brokerage side of the business, and this is going to give us the opportunity to do that, right? We juice the lemon a little bit more, now we can make more lemonade, right? But it's a thing that, you guys see what I'm saying? Just from a sincere point of view and just being authentic, that goes so far.
Yeah, I don't want to force anyone. I don't want to dictate and tell people you have to use our TC, you have to use our escrow. I want them to want to support ours because they're really good at what they do. And I know that they can, wherever they want to go with their business, I know having them on their team eventually is going to help them get there.
Yeah, man, it's there's a lesson to be learned there for a lot of folks that I think do it the opposite way. So that's awesome, dude. So grown to 100 agents, you guys are just crushing it. Let's take it back to the agent level for this last like 10 minutes, because obviously you've been in the business now for how long?
20 years.
20 years. Okay, so you've been through a couple of different market cycles, right? Mm-hmm. If you were an agent right now, what would you be focusing on? Because it's so volatile, and like 1 week, I read news this morning that the stock market is on a bull run again, and I'm like, dude, how long is this roller coaster going to last? Like, there's so much negativity and volatility in the market now. If you were to say, hey, if I was an agent right now, here's the immediate things I would be focusing on to kind of weather the storm, what would those things be?
It's identifying the standards. You got to do, for me, you got to make a minimum of 60 contacts a week, which is nothing, right? In this market, you should be doing 3 times that, like Tom Ferry's been saying, Gary, for the last year and a half. It's at least 2 to 3 open houses a month. It's reporting your numbers with an accountability partner every single night by 6 p.m., like a deadline, right? It's making sure that you have enough fishing lines in the water that are going to attract, whether it's squeeze pages, social media, AI, whatever you can do, but you got to have something that might get a fish to bite, and then have a system to start following up on them on a high level. And you've said it already. It's taking massive action and just failing forward as quickly as you can, because if you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing you're not raising the bar, and you're too comfortable. You're way too comfortable. I don't know if you guys have seen that meme recently. If you haven't, I'll post it after this because it's totally applicable to right now. But it's that guy. It's like a middle-aged dude standing in front of a whiteboard, and the X and Y axis, the X axis is fuck around and the Y axis is find out, right? It's hilarious. I got to post it after this. But the point I'm trying to make is this. If you want to improve your business right now, to Scott's point, I think the first thing that you need to do right now is just accept the fact that exactly where your business is at is no one else's fault but your own. If that's a good thing, kudos, props to you. Have fun. Go out and celebrate this weekend. But if you're like, hey, I want to do more, the fastest thing that every agent has the inclination to do, myself included sometimes, like even in my circumstance right now, I caught myself the other day complaining about venture capital markets. It's super tight right now, and it's the worst time to do this. And I caught myself going, who gives a shit? I can't change it, right? People complaining about the way the market is right now, you can't change it. All you can try and do is get in front of it and outwork the market, right? So to Scott's point, you want tactical advice as an agent right now, 60 contacts a week, that's doable. That's making like
5 phone calls a day for the most part, 5 days a week, whatever the number shakes out to. I'm not very good with math, but the point I'm
12.
trying to make is 12 calls a day. There you go. 560, it worked out somewhere. Really simple. Take a Post-it note out after this session, write down 12 calls a day, 3 open houses a month. Each time you do one, cross it off and go start over. If you do that, the results follow. It's just a numbers game. It's far less about what you say on those phone calls and far more about just making them consistently. It's not just going to happen. You don't wake up one morning. I'm sure Scott didn't just wake up one morning and sell 120 houses in a year, right? It was a continual effort over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm sure along that journey, there were times where you couldn't see the light, Scott, right?
No.
So it's something that everyone on this call can take a page out of your playbook on, and it doesn't have to just be in the real estate space. Success is not an accident, right? Sure, some people, you win the lottery, great, have fun. Not the way I want to do it, right? So just thinking about that, figure out what the smallest controllable thing you can do over the next couple of weeks is. Just go for it. Just shoot or shoot, but you got to get that goal somewhere. So that makes sense, Scott. So getting really granular on your activity and stuff. Closing words, I always like to ask this question because it always gets people's brains lit up and gets people really thinking. You started in this business 20 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. If you could go back in a time machine tomorrow and have a conversation with 20-year ago Scott and give him any advice, what would that advice be and why?
It would be 80% of something is always better than 100% of nothing. Like I overanalyzed and again was worried about the brand and the look. What we've talked about today is about consistency.
Sure.
Just get it out. Marketing, you're picking up the phone and using that dialogue that you know that you've been practicing. You just got to apply it. The only way you're going to learn is by making those mistakes and then course correcting as you go along. There's never going to be the right time. Your inbox will always be full. Just get after it. I mean, really, you just, especially in this market, you know, we're seeing everyone fall by the wayside. Just do what you know you're supposed to be doing. You have nothing to lose. At my age, Chris, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And I feel like this conversation that you're doing on this platform for other agents, I wish this was around when I was getting into the industry because I didn't have a good mentor. It was just failing forward. So that's, if I can instill anything in this audience, is just fail forward as quickly as possible. It's going to be your best coach. Time is not there forever.
I love that. That is, I think that gets everyone thinking, right? We have this idea that for whatever reason, when you're in a rut, time seems to slow down. And then when you're riding high, it seems to speed up. Like all we have is right now. And that is super powerful advice. So Scott, that's awesome. How can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you more? Obviously, there's a lot of people in Southern California on that Long Beach market. What's your Instagram handle? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? All that cool stuff.
Yeah, give me a follow at Scott Kato, SCOTTKATO on Instagram, or Google my name, and hopefully you'll find me like my buyers and sellers do. And I'd love to connect, and I'd love to have a conversation with you if you're open to it.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Scott, thank you so much for the time, man. I just realized I've been butchering your last name this entire time. No. So that's totally my L. I will correct that next time. For those of you guys, if this was your first time hopping on here, I'm going to do these every Friday, and more and more people have started reaching out to me wanting to hop on here and kind of share their journey. If you know anyone cool that you're like, hey, I've always wanted to figure out what this person did, or if you can think of anyone that would be a good fit here, shoot me a DM. All of my stuff is super public. You can hop on, jump in, reach out to me. I want to know who these people are and what you want us to talk about, because this is never going to end. We're going to continue doing this for a long time because I think there's a lot of value that I get out of these things, and it's going to be awesome. So, Scott, thank you for your time. I will see you guys all on the flip side. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you all next Friday. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Later, dude.